but ask Jean to pan a little bit further up the water's edge. There is a troop of vervet monkeys that we saw that are also coming down for a drink. Sadly, you can't see too clearly from this angle. The not so pretty stalks in the foreground are marabou stalks. And they've been having an absolute field day catching lots and lots of fish. James has headed out on the other vehicle with Brian, one of the cameramen who's been away on leave, and he just got back today, so I'm sure a lot of you will be happy to hear that and will be looking forward to seeing his slick camera work. And I think James's plan was to head across to Arathusa. And we've got Jerry directing the show with Nikki lending her hand in the final control. These two buffalo seem to be having a little conversation with one another. One of them, you'll notice, has got a branch dangling from its head, and it would have been rubbing its horns against bushes to try and get rid of horned borer moth larvae, which get laid on their horns and then try and bore into that keratin sheath. But I'm sure it won't take long for that twig to become dislodged again, but for now it's got a bit of an accessory. And as Jean starts panning across to the left, there's a real character of a buffalo who's giving us a serious stare. He's covered in mud. Look at him. Oh, I wouldn't want to bump across this individual when on a walking safari. It doesn't look like he will tolerate any nonsense from us. Now, I do have a little bit of bad news. Some of you can hear me, but some of you can't. So we are going to reboot. Now, for those of you who cannot hear me, we are going to try and fix the problem, and we are going to reboot. So we are going to cut the power, put the power back, and hopefully it will be fixed. So goodbye for now, and let's hope the tech wizards manage to solve this problem quickly, and we'll be waiting at this waterhole for your return. And maybe if he was just covered in regular fluffy fur, he wouldn't look so intimidating. They are cantankerous old beasts, these. And it looks like even this other big bull has given way for him. Interestingly, there were a lot more buffalo here initially when we arrived at about half an hour ago, about 3:45. But they've all moved off, and just a few stragglers left behind. What I would like to show you is all the marabou stalks just across the way there. I did mention that they were having a field day fishing. They're catching lots of what look like tilapia. Quite small, kind of 2 inches to 4 inches is the general size I'm seeing coming out. But let's take a look for a moment, and it won't be long before you see. There's one bottom left. That's got a fish. It's going to get it back up into the air now. I think it's just trying to almost chew on it, it looks like, or has it lost that one? I'm wondering how they're going to manage to take off a bit later, because they are going to be incredibly full-bellied. Just the other day we spoke about the likelihood of storks attacking the Egyptian geese with their little goslings, and they're just off to the left of the marabou storks. Sadly, one gosling has not made it. The hopalongers seems to have not survived. There was one little gosling that had kind of a problem with its foot. There were 7 initially, now there's just 6, and when I saw them walking down to the water's edge, there was no sign of hopalong. But interestingly, one marabou stork a little bit earlier on was actually showing some signs of interest towards the Egyptian geese and the goslings, and I did snap off a photo of the two Egyptian geese chasing that one marabou stork that was getting a little bit too close for comfort. So take a closer look here. Oh, head's in the way now. But you can see the two Egyptian geese at the bottom there. The goslings are underneath one of them, and then they're chasing off the marabou stork there. That's probably a bit clearer now, and I can probably zoom in a bit. So it is a reality that marabou storks will try and catch, oh sorry, wrong button, will try and catch the Egyptian geese. And watch here, it's actually happening now. I think the one marabou stork's getting a bit too close, and listen to the geese. Can you believe it? Perfect timing. Surely not. You see, naughty marabou stork. But those Egyptian geese are not taking any nonsense, and even though that marabou stork's intentions were very, very clear, with the close watch of the parents, I don't think those goslings have anything to worry about just yet. But can you believe how lucky our timing was? So I'm sure a lot of you are not going to be on the side of the marabou stork after that performance, and you'll be glad to know there's another animal that I think is going to put you in a good mood, because if the marabou storks catch a big fish, what is all likelihood going to happen is the individual sitting waiting patiently up in the tree here is going to swoop down and steal it from them. Now this juvenile fish eagle is showing some wisdom. Rather than trying to catch its own fish, it knows that these storks are probably going to catch a fish sooner rather than later. It's a bit too big for them to manage with, or deal with quickly. And as they carry it to the water's edge, that's when this fish eagle will in all likelihood swoop down and try to steal it. So that's something to look forward to. And one last, well, not one last thing, but another thing that we can show you now is the yellow-billed stork, which is a stork we don't see very commonly, and it's just standing on the sandbank in front of the marabou storks. So could well be a new bird for your bird lists. And if it's your first time joining these live safaris, bird lists are in the summer, and we suggest you get one going. And you'll be able to start your list with the yellow-billed stork. Again, it's not one that we see very commonly here. So a pleasant surprise. Well, another thing for the new viewers is that this is an interactive safari, and you can send questions through at any time. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter is the one option, or questions at WildEarthTV on email is the other option. And I'm very, very happy to announce that one of our fellow colleagues and presenters for Safari Live, Hayden Turner, is busy watching the show, and he's just sent through a tweet saying he's looking forward to getting back here and he's loving this sighting. Hayden spent a lot of time at this waterhole, and HT, can you believe how low it's getting? Absolutely crazy. And I hope all is well in London, and we're certainly looking forward to your arrival. Now, one animal that we haven't had a look at yet at the waterhole is probably the largest animal here, so quite bizarre that we've ended up showing them to you last, but you probably noticed a few hippopotamus lying in the shallows here. Interestingly enough, there's 5 of them, and if I remember correctly, our last head count was just 4. But you can see 2 on the right. One youngster's using, it looks like its mother's head as a pillow, and then another 2 over there, and then a third one way on the left with a hammerkop, using their bodies as an island to hunt off. And they all seem to be doing okay, but Judith is concerned for another hippo, and that's the one in the waterhole at the Djuma waterhole, where there's a live camera, and Judith seems to think that it has passed away. Now Judith, fear not, that hippo is very much alive. We drove past it on our way here and it winked at us. It just doesn't have much need to move a lot during the day, and is trying to conserve energy in these hard times. I don't think its condition is too bad, so don't read too much into its lazy body language. But one thing I must say and forewarn everyone is that there is going to be a lot of hard scenes and sightings over the coming weeks and months if this drought continues. Jandre, well done. Jandre is already on it. This juvenile African fish eagle is just soaring up above us. Oh, wonderful. But it looks like it's thinking of going off to another waterhole to wait for a meal there. Let's wait and see. Who knows, it may come back in. It is coming back towards us. Always wonderful to watch eagles soaring above us. It always makes me so jealous. And it doesn't seem to be coming back any closer, so we're going to send you off onto the other vehicle, which is being commanded by James, and we will catch up shortly afterwards.
Hello everybody, and good afternoon from a large sounder of warthogs that is grazing here next to the Arathusa dam. You obviously can't see the dam at the moment. It's been a little while since I spoke to you yesterday afternoon. My name is James Henry, for those who don't know, and on camera we have got Brian. He is back from leave. He is still 6 foot, almost 7 foot. Intimidatingly large fellow is our Brian, and there is his thumb. Beautiful. Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.
Now, there's a little bit going on down here, and we'll just have a look back at the warthogs now, I think. They are one of the most susceptible animals to drought, and so this presents quite a rough time for them. We're not quite in a drought. It is dry, as you've seen with Scott at Buffelshoek. There's definitely a drying of the water holes, but there is still quite a lot of water around from the dams in Buffelshoek. The Sand River is not too far from us, and of course there's this big waterhole in front of Arathusa. And as long as these warthogs can get water, and as long as they live in close enough proximity to it, they'll be fine. But remember, on those short little legs that those warthogs have, large-scale migration is obviously very difficult, and so if the water dries up too much, they're one of the first ones to really start to suffer. This little sounder, however, it's actually quite a large sounder, probably 2 groups that have come together, possibly because of the water, and they should be fine. Right, so that is the warthogs, and then over to the top of my head, which I shall just quickly remove out of your picture. There we go. There we are, some buffalo. Now it always interests me that buffalo seem to sit in the sun, and I seldom find them in the shade, and I find that very odd, given that they are black, of course, and that means they will heat up slightly faster than some of the other animals. They don't have very long hair. In fact, they've hardly got any, so that will help. But they do tend to lie out in what I would consider an extremely hot environment. And then we've got some impala running off to the left-hand side of your screen there. They've just come down for a quick drink, and then once we've had a quick look at the impalas, and they are looking up, you can see them looking up there. There are tracks of a leopard, female leopard, around this area, and that's why we're over here, hoping that she might too pop down for a drink and bless us with her presence, if you like. And then if we go off to the right hand side, we can see the water, the camp that is Arathusa. Mercifully, no sounds of angle grinding at the moment. Remember that when the guests are out of camp, that's the only time we can do any maintenance, so obviously things are in all tickety-boo inside Arathusa camp today. And then there are a whole lot of hippopotamus. Now, believe it or not, Brian described these as swamp things, and I think that's a pretty good description of what you're looking at there. And that is a whole lot of water hyacinth that has covered the surface of this water. I don't think it makes it any less drinkable than it might be otherwise. You've got them calling. But certainly it makes it slightly more difficult, I think, for the hippo. Although I have seen them eating a bit of this water hyacinth. Now what I'm trying to do is to find the tiny little baby hippo in here called Lily. And I think I've spotted, maybe, Brian, to the left of the biggest swamp thing. Left there. Now if you zoom in right, yeah, I think that's that little bubble there is a tiny baby hippo. So you can't really see it, but it's right at the other side of the dam. And maybe the Zoomy controlling the Arathusa dam cam can focus in on that spot there. I think that you will find is where the tiny little baby hippo called Lily is sitting under the hyacinths. So that's what's going on here at Arathusa Dam. I'm sure, as Scott has explained to you, it's roughly the temperature of a neutron star out here, and there is a drying wind as well that is really rendering much of the grass that flushed green after that last 30 millimeters of rain that we had. It's now starting to turn all sort of wintry brown again, which is not great for the animals, but they will persevere. Remember that normally the proper rains only start in the middle of November, and Brent and I said 20th of November we'd get our first decent storm. So far we haven't been proved too wrong. We did have some very nice early spring rains, but I think the proper stuff will only start sort of closer to the end of this month. Right, let us drive slowly along and see what else we can see. We're going to head towards the drainage line there and see if we can't spot the leopard. And just before we leave here, I'm going to answer a question from Shannon in Ohio, and just a nice link to Scott's sighting. You had the little goslings there at Buffalo's Hook Dam. That is a family of geese there, and those ones are obviously substantially older than the little ones that you saw at Buffalo's Hook Dam, and I doubt that they all made it through. I mean, obviously these ones did, but they were probably a similar number to the clutch that you saw at Buffalo's Hook Dam, and unfortunately they do kind of fall prey to all sorts of different things out here, but probably largely birds of prey. Maybe the odd monitor lizard, but probably largely birds of prey. Shannon, you want to know how long it would take for a waterhole like this to fill up? How many hours of rain? Shannon, I wouldn't know in terms of hours. That would be difficult to answer because, of course, you can have soaking rain, you can have storms, so they all deliver different amounts of water. I would say probably we'd need about 40 to 50 millimeters, which in inches is about 2 and a bit inches of water before we'd have a decent amount of water at the bottom of these water holes. So I think probably about that much, and then ideally you want a bit of a flash flood to come through the drainage lines or the dry riverbeds, which will then fill up some of these dams. Right, and lots of swallows. Sorry, before we go on, and Brian, I don't know if you can... you might make viewers nauseous but trying to film them, but there are a whole lot of birds trying to drink from the surface of the water, and the insects of course will be doing the same thing, so the birds will be drinking from the surface and picking up the odd insect as well. There they are. Very nice, Brian. You haven't forgotten how to do it after your long leave. Well, it wasn't really long, was it? Okay, on we go. We're going to head towards a drainage line here, or this kind of dry riverbed that feeds this dam, and we'll see if we can't pick up on tracks of a female leopard, I think probably Shadow. And thank you very much to all of you who have welcomed Brian and his inimitable thumb.
Thank you, everyone.
There we go, Brian.
Glad to be back. Tough to be back.
That was the thumb speaking, everyone. Right, trauma at the goslings. Let's go back to Scott. He'll keep you updated and we'll see if we can track the leopard.
So, my heart skipped a few beats just a few moments ago, and as you can see now, the two Egyptian geese adults are feeding very intensely. And while their heads are under the water, one or two of the goslings strayed a couple of meters away, and there's two marabou storks that are just out to the left of the screen now, those two over there. And as soon as they realized that the Egyptian geese weren't kind of focused, they started edging closer towards those little goslings. And to be honest, I thought the goslings were a goner. The parents were so caught up in their feeding, and I thought the marabou storks were going to just take one or two hops and have a gosling in their mouth. So let's hope that doesn't happen, but I fear it may be a reality this afternoon. Happy to hear that James is heading off in search of a leopard, and I wonder which leopard it is around Arathusa waterhole. Possibly Shadow, possibly Tingana. Look at this hammerkorp. They are great hunters and are incredibly quick, and what they'll do is they'll wait for a little bit of movement on the surface of the water and then plunge into the water after their prey. They're great at catching little fish and frogs. The storks are still doing the majority of their hunting in the background there. I'm not sure why that is the most favoured spot, but it appears like that's where all the action's going down. Well, we have seen a plethora of game here this afternoon. Kudu, zebra, buffalo, and then lots of birds. The monkeys, I guess, were also down here for a few moments. And our Steve Blake is wondering, why are there no lions waiting here to cash in on not only the water but all the potential prey? Good question, Steve, and the basic answer to that is there's lots of water around. There's more water holes than there are prides of lion, so that they can have the ability to choose which waterhole they would prefer to be at. I think Tibbs has spotted the marabou stork on the right with quite a big fish. Is it going to take it to the water's edge to try and dispatch and then swallow? Or is that a terrapin that it's got in its beak? No, it's a fish. Quite a big tilapia. Oh, look at that! Now you can see it more clearly. Now it's got it positioned head first. Will it be able to swallow it? Are you at full zoom there, Tibbs? The one on the left. There you go. Look at that massive gular flap, which helps to keep the marabou stalk cool. It's a thermoregulatory device. You see, this would have been a good opportunity for that African fish eagle to swoop down and steal this fish, but sadly its patience did not serve it well, and it's gone off to find a meal elsewhere. Oh, there we go. Job done. They usually have to tilt their necks and kind of crank their heads from side to side after swallowing such big prey. Sorry, Steve, so back to your question. Just before that stork managed to catch that big fish, I can just finish off by saying that, like I said, there's not nearly as many waterholes as there are prides of lion, and they've got big home territories, and sadly the lion and all the other animals here have got freedom to traverse wherever they like, but we don't. And I'm sure lion in the general area, but not on our property, will be relaxing somewhere close to a waterhole. Speaking of lion, we got a report from MJ. Thanks so much for this report. And MJ mentioned that the Salala Pride are back on Londolozi. And for those of you who don't know the Salala Pride, it was one lioness without a tail, along with one other slightly younger lioness, and then 3 subadults. And those 3 subadults were all males, one of which went missing, and a lot of people feared that he was dead. But the good news is he is confirmed to still be alive, but he is alone. He is not with the rest of the pride, with the other 4 members, but not too far from them. So all good news for the Salala Pride. Not such good news for us, because it probably means we won't be seeing them for quite some time now. But an update nonetheless, and again, thanks MJ for that update. The wind is really beginning to howl now. I'm not sure if you can hear it getting picked up on the mic. The marabou storks might like this and may be able to transport them to wherever they plan on roosting, although they may decide to roost nearby and be able to pop in here for breakfast first thing in the morning. Now, always a tricky question when on safari as to what shall our next move be? Do we stay or do we go? We don't have Happy to hear that you are anticipating the arrival of the woodlands kingfisher. Now, I think Brent remembered that he saw his first woodlands kingfisher this time last year, actually almost to the day, if it is the 12th of November. I think it is the 12th. Either way, close to today. The woodlands kingfishers returned from Central Africa to here, not in one foul swoop, but slowly they make their way back here. There's been no signs of them, Stella, yet, but they'll arrive instantaneously and then they'll be here. One will start and then the droves will follow in its place. So, looking forward to it, but no ideas of when exactly they will get here. This drought may have certainly impacted their journey towards us, and it will therefore also impact on their arrival time. Well, I just missed a beat there, but if we just pan a little bit more to the right there, Tebs, you can see the Egyptian geese heading back towards their goslings, who again strayed probably 2 or 3 meters too far from their parents. And further to the right, as Teb zooms out, there is one marabou stork lurking there. That quack, 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 quack is the Egyptian geese you can hear calling, and they'll call out like that when they do get agitated. Ah, we have got good news, and we have some visitors arriving, and our patience has paid off. Look at this elephant bull. It could just be him all on his own, but he looks to be a magnificent specimen, and I love watching them rush down to get to the water. And interesting how his first movements have not been to drink, but to rather cool down his body. Wonderful. Imagine having a trunk, how much fun it would be. Or just being an elephant full stop. Now you can see as he splashes around this water, it is not anything close to crystal clear, and just goes to show how desperate these animals are. They'll take whatever moisture they can get. I love those little sideways shots that he gives himself, and the audio that you probably would have been able to pick up too as the water splashed against his side. Now what he may do is he may even lie down in the water and roll around completely. That would be incredible. But he seems to be doing a good job covering most of his body with water just by using his trunk. Oh, he might be going for it. He is going to, I think. He's going to roll around. Come on. Now if it was deeper, he'd be more than happy to go for a swim, but as you can see, it's kind of ankle deep for the elephant. And glistening in the sunshine, absolutely wonderful. And you can see a few spindly legs in the background. It looks like some Inyala are probably also coming to join him, but we'll wait for them to get a little bit closer. He is absolutely covered from head to toe. Oh, now he's using the kick technique. Look at this. Kick technique is very good to coat the undercarriage when you're an elephant. So I think that's what he was doing there. Now, elephants are very fussy animals, and they're also very clever animals. So their intelligence combined with their fussy nature means that he may well not even drink any of this water and may just be using it to cool down. And he knows that there are other sources of fresh water in the Sabi sands. A lot of water holes are artificially pumped into from boreholes, and that borehole water is certainly a lot sweeter tasting than this muddy pond. So this could be simply a muddy bath, but not a thirst quenching operation. Well, while he's kind of on the go slow, we can show you a quick glimpse of the Inyala, which are making their way down to the water's edge. Such pretty antelope. Quite interesting that the youngster was the first one there. Obviously its thirst is overwhelming its cautiousness. There's also, a buffalo in the water nearby there, and I thought that's what was scaring it off, but it appears that they're getting scared of their own shadow, and also cautious of crocodiles. That log looks quite crocodile-like. That's why I think they're thinking twice about having a sip there. There has been a crocodile in this waterhole from time to time. And we can learn a good lesson from these Inyala. Always assume there is a crocodile in a pond. Don't assume otherwise you could end up crocodile breakfast. And that's for us as humans swimming, as well as for Inyala drinking. What I'm going to suggest now is we go off the Inyala. There's so much things happening here, and have a quick closer look at the goslings which are making their way towards us. And there's a lot of you who have just joined the show. Donna Ree says, aren't these marabou stalks very archaic? And yes, they do look like they are from the dinosaur ages. You're 100% correct. Let's take a close look at those goslings, Tibbs. And Raisa, don't worry, we're not going anywhere yet, so I'll be sure to show you the yellow-billed stork a little bit later. It's one bird we don't get to see very often. Cute. So there were 7, now there's 6, but that's life. And the 7th individual did have something wrong with its foot or its leg. It was hobbling around. But it'll be wonderful to monitor them more closely. And now that we've had a good look at them, I think we're going to have to move across to the Ellie now. He's come a lot closer to us, and he is shimmering and glistening like a bronze sculpture. Beautiful. And he proved me wrong. He's not very fussy, and as you can see, he's enjoying a drink of this water. I love the way they play with their trunks. Look at how he wedged it in between his tusk there. Isn't this spectacular? Oh, you got a bit of a fright from the marabou stork you may have seen flying across in the background. And he just raised his head up. I wonder if he's going to come and say hello to us after this little drinking fiasco. And again, he's got this strange technique of wedging his trunk underneath his right tusk. Hello, boy. Even though it wouldn't be ideal, I wouldn't mind if you filled your trunk up with this muddy water and came and sprayed us with it. Come on. Listen carefully here as he's rubbing his trunk between his legs, all over his face. This is magnificent. Always happy to hear we've got some younger viewers, and this one is becoming a safari expert, young Isabella, only 4 years of age. Hello, Isabella. And Isabella's just making sure that elephants will not ever hurt or cut their trunk by draping it or dangling it over their tusks. And I don't think they do, Isabella. Their tusks aren't sharp enough, and their trunks, the skin on the elephants is very, very thick. So we don't have to worry about that happening. Looks like he might come and say hello to us. Are you going to come and say hello, boy? Oh, wow, this is beautiful. And we're going to get a great low angle, probably silhouette shot, as he climbs up onto this bank. Look at this. Hello, boy. What's wrong? We were here first. Don't start your rubbish. And I hope a lot of you have been taking screenshots. You've heard me firing away wildly. I may have one half decent photograph out of all of those shots. Apologies for you having to go through that. But I do love my photography. There's one other animal while we're racking up the different species, and it's a male impala. So we've done impala now, zebra, kudu, inyala, elephant, vervet monkeys. Those are the 6 mammals that we've seen here. Oh, and the Cape buffalo, 7 mammals that we've seen here so far. And more could arrive. The vervet monkeys are actually about to descend the torchwood tree directly across the way from us. We don't get to see vervet monkeys that frequently, so always good to enjoy viewing our close relatives. Hello, Carol, and wonderful to hear that you're watching and you're safely back home, I presume. For those of you who don't know, Carol was out here on safari just a week or so ago, and we got to meet her, went and had dinner, and it was wonderful to get to know you, Carol, and so glad that you are now joining in again on these live safaris. And you would have been here in all likelihood during your safari with Taxon, so very happy to hear that you are still enjoying the safari even though you are many miles away. And like you say, what a wonderful sighting this is. So much to see and talk about, and let's hope it continues. There could well be a lot more animals coming down to drink shortly. So it appears like the marabou storks have found a new little fish pond and they're all hurrying across to this new area. And I think they certainly are kind of hunting communally. If there was just one of them there, I don't think they'd be nearly as successful as when they kind of hunt in a flock like this. And I'm just making sure not to get too caught up on action in any one corner of the waterhole, in the fear that I may miss something approaching from behind us or just miss something happening elsewhere around the waterhole. There is so much going on here. What would be incredible is if a leopard came onto the scene, as it's been quite some time since I've seen a leopard, if my memory serves me correctly, and would love to actually get some quality time in with one of them. Had a great afternoon tracking Karula yesterday, learning a little bit more about her life, and it's interesting how by not even being with an animal you can still learn about them from their tracks. I know about 5 or 6 marula trees that she scent marked on, and those will be useful to know in future tracking exercises, because she could well use those very same trees for scent marking time and time again. Now look at this interesting technique that the yellow-billed stork's using, and Raisa, you'll probably enjoy this. This is a bird we don't get to see very often, and it's doing the open beak fan, waiting to feel a bit of movement, and then it'll clamp down. And it's using kind of quite a wide arc and a slow motion pan. Oh, thought about it there. The marabou storks have got a more kind of just jab and clamp technique, snapping wildly at anything. Seems to be working though. Look at how massive their wingspan is, well over 2 meters. And the one on the far side there has caught a fish that it was running off with, as another marabou stork thought about stealing it. Interesting in nature, stealing is very common, and as long as you're big and strong you can do anything you like to anyone around you, really. But thankfully us as humans, well, at least, I don't know if it's the majority or the minority, but some of us prefer not to steal and are not too greedy. But out in the wild, predatory birds like this will all steal from one another. Lion will steal from lion, and they'll also steal from all the predators smaller than them. Leopards, cheetah, wild dog. I guess this is one example of a lesson we as humans should not adopt from wild animals. Let's watch closely here. The Egyptian geese, you can hear, have been making an absolute racket. Look here. And those 2 marabou storks just got chased off unceremoniously. Great parenting there. And all 6 goslings still there, so they live to fight another day. Looks like it's evening bath time for the goose family. They're getting ready for bed. The hippos, on the other hand, will be thinking, or beginning to think about, starting their day, if that makes any sense. They are nocturnal grazers, so they would have been sleeping the whole day here, and will need to head out in search of grass in the evening, as that's entirely what they feed on. Now, Kay is interested to know, will these hippo have to leave this waterhole if it dries up completely? And yes, Kay, they will. They do rely on water. And as I've said, there are lots more waterholes around. Just because we can't go to them and show them to you doesn't mean that they don't exist. There's life outside of Djuma and Arathusa. We are only allowed to traverse a pinprick of the Sabi Sands as well as the Greater Kruger National Park, so there's lots of places they can go. But if the drought does get severe to a point where there's nowhere to go, well, then they'll just have to lie in a puddle of mud and lose condition, get sunburns. Some of them will die. It is harsh times, and it's not quite at that stage yet where it's dire straits, but it could well get there in the future. But these hippos don't have anything to worry about, and they would be able to relocate to another water point elsewhere. Buffalo's Hook, the property to the north of us, has plenty of massive water holes with lots of water in them. So there are other options, and maybe these hippo have decided to come into a quieter neck of the woods hippo-wise. Still on the topics of hippo, Sarah in Ohio would like to know what happened to the hippo's back that's at the Djuma waterhole. And some of you may have noticed a few small open wounds, and to me it looks like the skin is just cracked and opened there. It doesn't look like lacerations or wounds from a fight, which are very clear and quite deep. And like I said, I think it's actually just from dying skin, and possibly the kind of body that's deteriorating, a malnourished hippo, causing these cracks to show up. So, not entirely sure. It'll be interesting to hear James's theory on that. But again, nothing too serious. They're tough animals with very, very thick skin, and those are just flesh wounds, Sarah. I think over time maybe they could get worse, but for now it's nothing too serious. Okay, I think I'm going to reposition to change the scenery a little bit and go and have a look at the view from the other side of the waterhole. There may be a little dip in signal as we go around the other side, but it will rectify itself quite quickly. If it does in fact disappear, so be warned. Well, I assume you are still with me, and we made it through the valley of signal dropping. And at least now we can just have a slightly, before I disappear into that massive hole in front of us, we can enjoy it. Let me just reposition the vehicle actually a bit better. Now, the one stalk in the middle of the screen with a big thing dangling from its neck there, Tebs, that is some kind of a defect. It's not supposed to have such kind of a calloused growth, so I'm not too sure exactly what that is. The gular flap is normal, but it's supposed to deflate, and I've never seen one with that kind of a tumorous growth almost. So just an interesting difference there that I cannot explain, but it is something I've noticed. It's the first time I've seen a saddle-billed stork with such a defect. And as we parked up here, you can see how the wind really is gusting, blowing the water towards us. Well, very happy that Raisa, one of our bird watching fanatics, is thoroughly enjoying himself. And not only that, but also that one of their favorite storks is here, and that's the yellow-billed stork. So before we leave, Raisa, and I think we are going to leave fairly shortly, I'm getting ants in my pants, we will give you a few last views of the yellow-billed stork and then continue off and see what else we can find. It's kind of changed positions ever so slightly, but it's still adopting the same slow motion hunting technique. More of a meticulous hunter, it appears. As I mentioned, I do have ants in my pants and are planning to move off. Diane has suggested we should head down Cheetah Cutline. Good idea, Diane. And the reason why Diane is suggesting that is that she was obviously tuned into the sunrise safari and remembered that there were some lions lurking very close to Cheetah Cutline, which is our eastern boundary. I have been listening to the radio, Diane. Sadly, I haven't heard any updates of them coming towards us, but it's still going to be worth hanging around in this area, or in the area of Cheetah Cutline, in the hope that they do come across for a visit a little bit later. In this hot afternoon, no, I don't expect them to be active anytime soon, but hopefully they'll surprise us. Great. Well, I think the Buffelshoek Waterhole has done a marvelous job keeping us busy for the start of the safari. I hope you've enjoyed it, but enough's enough, and now let's go and see what else we can find. For those of you who didn't believe me that the hippo was in fact alive, the hippo at the Djuma waterhole camera, apparently it's just been chased off by a large breeding herd of elephants, who then enjoyed spending some time there before moving off, and then the hippo returned. So it's alive and moving. So that is some more confirmation for you guys. Sounds like a wonderful sighting actually, so I'm sure a lot of you were multitasking and on 2 safaris at once, one at the Djuma waterhole and one with us. If that hippopotamus was in fact dead or does die in the coming future, and it was to die in the water, Judith would like to know if we would remove it. And yes, we would, or at least I'm fairly certain the owner of Djuma would task the staff here to remove it from the waterhole so that predators can feed on it, leaving nothing to go to waste, and also to prevent the waterhole becoming stagnant and full of dead, decaying hippo. So that will in fact happen in all likelihood. As we drive along, I'm just making sure there's no tracks of anything interesting along the road here. Possibly some animals coming to the waterhole or even leaving. A leopard may have come and drunk and then moved off, and we could then track it as it leaves now. And it sounds like James is about to be ready to receive you guys, so that's great news, and he can give you an update on what's going on. We're just going to get one more question through and then you'll be on board with him. And earlier on with that elephant bull that was at the waterhole, I urged it to fill its trunk up with water and come and spray us down. And Charlene in California would like to know if that has ever happened to me. Sadly not, Charlene. It would be a great story if it would have happened. Although it wasn't long ago that I think Brent and Brian got a dust bath spray from elephants and the vehicle got covered in dust. So not muddy water, but they still got sprayed by an elephant, you could say. So it certainly is possible, and who knows, maybe one of these days we will get an elephant shower. Great, well, it's been wonderful spending time with you guys, but I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to a change of scenery and an update from James and what's going on with those leopard tracks at Arathusa.
So everybody, we have been driving around this area, I'm afraid, doing a bit of walking too, listening, sniffing, feeling, extrasensory perceptioning, but I'm afraid we have not come up with Shadow, her relatives or anyone else. But we've come back to the waterhole here to see if perhaps she doesn't pop out. It's unlikely that she's in these exact sort of area because whole water buck there. There are also, quite interestingly, two species of spiral-horned antelope, and you can see the nyala over there, and just behind them, disappearing up into the camp, is a bush buck. Now we seldom see them together like that. They're very closely related though. They're sort of like, if you imagine two different species of zebra, they're the same kind of relationship, and they're also very closely related to the kudu. And there's a bush buck in there somewhere, much smaller than the nyala, and you can, if you don't see them often and you don't see them together, they can be confused with each other. But when you see them together like that, it's impossible to confuse them. So there are the nyala cows, and there's a nyala bull that they are heading sort of towards. And there he is there. There he is. There's the bull. Brian, I'm going to let you field this one. Gracie, aged 8 in Ohio. Gracie, thanks for your question. We'd like to know from Brian, did he visit the circus that he used to go to when he was on leave? Brian, did you visit that circus?
Unfortunately not, Gracie. I didn't get a chance to pop over.
Gracie, the circus that Brian used to work for is in a place called Thailand, which is a long, long way from South Africa. So see if you can get someone to show you a map of the world, and you'll see how far away South Africa is from Thailand. But thank you for your question. I don't know if you did any trapeze while you were on leave, did you?
Not this time.
No, not this time. Okay, good. All right, there are also some monkeys just up ahead, so we're going to go and have a quick look at them. And there's a sort of quite strong breeze building now, and I think it's as the sun sort of starts to head towards the horizon, frankly not fast enough, because it is still beastly hot out here. So we're just going to sneak towards this big jackalberry tree here on the termite mound, and there were some monkeys knocking about in here. Not a great sign if you're looking for leopards, because monkeys are extremely adept at spotting them, and they make a big noise as soon as they see a leopard. Ooh, but there we go. There's a monkey. A whole lot of them. A veritable plethora. Well, two. You see them, Brian? They've just gone up there. There we go, you can see the bit of movement there. There you got the monkeys. The vervet monkey, not a velvet monkey as many people think. And they'll be looking for little bits and pieces of fruit up there, maybe the odd insect. And they'll be trying to stay sort of out of sight of us. This isn't a jackalberry tree, everyone. It's a scotia tree, or weeping boer bean. Now we're going to drive a little bit closer to it, because in the midst of its boughs there is a very interesting nest, which I haven't seen before, but there it is. Look at that quite astonishing construction. That is the nest, everybody, of a hammerkop, or hammerhead. Now you may or may not have seen a hammerkop while you've been on drive with us. Scott may have shown you one at Buffelshoek Dam, actually. But that is the nest in which the hammerkop lives, and you can see it is in a quite amazing construction. They can weigh up to 100 kilograms, which is the weight of a baby elephant, if you like, or 220 pounds. And they use all sorts of things, and I don't think it's a coincidence that this nest is right next to the Arathusa camp. They'll go and they'll fossick around in rubbish dumps and all sorts of things, and they've found soles of shoes and insulation tape and bits of wiring and the odd plug and any kind of a thing that might add sort of heaviness to the top. The hammerkop will use to make this astonishing construction. And then the hole that you can see there leads to a chamber inside where the temperature is very constant. That's why they've got all of that material around it. It's good insulation. And it's lined with mud, so it's a very comfortable place for the baby hammerkop to sort of fledge, and eventually they fly away. And the hammerkop obviously will use that nest again and again, because it would be an enormous effort to build something like that every year. That's great. It's the first one I've seen here. I know there is one on Djuma. We're of course on Arathusa at the moment, but I haven't seen the one on Djuma yet. Wow. Fantastic. The monkeys are still around here. We'll just do a little push forward and see if we can't see one. In this tree no monkeys that I can see. There is a little puddle of water here, and that little puddle of water I've seen a leopard drinking in before. There we go. Leopards, if they can avoid the kind of big open... Oh, that's a hardy-dar ibis calling. Particularly loud call. Bane of Johannesburg